Diese Vorträge ist auf English. I'm Nicholas Clark. I work for PaperOp. I believe we're at GPW24 in Frankfurt am Main. And this talk, I have to not panic about, is code coverage merge request with GitLab and Devel cover. And I apologize that I used default slide settings, and I know some of the text is rather small and hard to read at the back because I've tested this. But at times the slides have been edited to get the info on the slide, and I didn't have time to go through and try and produce 50% more slides with bigger text. So I will try and talk loudly and slowly. I'm certainly good at the loud bit. We actually have an abstract for this talk. So the plan for this talk is an overview of code coverage with Devel cover, how easy it is to get reported coverage, subroutine statement, branch, and condition coverage, and when to stop, when do you have enough coverage. And the second half of the talk, which is probably about a bit more than half, is how you get from the local reports on your system to GitLab, how you generate Cobertura format XML, how you get that to GitLab correctly, which is a bit of a dance, how I figured out I needed to fake Devel cover data for empty files, and then how I got to publish the full, pretty colorful Devel cover reports to GitLab Pages, and then trying and not really succeeding to do this locally without GitLab. So we begin with code coverage. I should just try and read English. I'm not doing very well at this. This is Wikipedia's definition. I can't do better. Code coverage is a percentage measure of the degree to which the source code of a program is executed when a particular test suite is run. A program with high test coverage has more of its source code executed during testing, which suggests it has a lower chance of containing undetected software bugs compared to a program with low test coverage. I did look up the German definition of this on German Wikipedia, and it used different words and said different things, and I thought, that's not going to work, so sorry. Anyway, Devel cover. It's a Perl module to collect code coverage and generate reports. It started in 2001, apparently called the logs, which is where this t-shirt comes from. And there's more jokes about 2001 later in this talk. And it's really easy. If you have this makefile to run your tests, I get a list. So running prove on a list of tests, and I pick the top level ones that work, removing the one that names one of our banks. And so that's your makefile to run tests. If you want to get Devel cover to do coverage, it really is this easy. You take that line that says prove, and you put it there with some options. Easy. You just run that same prove command with some options. And let's say what we're doing. So our options, and this was nicked from the workmate file, so that might not make sense with all these slightly misnamed things, is we were going to ignore, we didn't want to collect coverage data for our test suite itself, our tools repository, the prove command, or any files in temp. And everything else we're going to collect coverage on. And for our makefile step, we set up, at the beginning of it, we delete any previous coverage report because these things accumulate and we might have moved the code around and they'll get confused. Zap that, run that command to collect coverage, and then run the cover command to generate a pretty report. Right, pretty report. Right, job done. That was a very quick talk. No, wait, no, what does this mean? It's got these columns. These columns. Stut, Bran, Con, Sub, Pod. Let's explain those. So, in a slightly weird order, actually logically, subroutine is the first one to talk about and then forget again. It's subroutine or method coverage. Are your subroutines called? Great. What's far more interesting is the next one, statement coverage. Basically, every line of possibly executable code, did it get executed? That's the basic one, and that's the one that we end up getting into GitLab later. Branch coverage is a bit more nuanced, and I'll give that later. Condition coverage is more subtle still, and pod coverage is basically the documentation covered. So at work, we've not been worrying about pod coverage, so we actually set it in those options to drop it. I cleaned them up, didn't. I kept the defaults for these slides because it was easier. There was going to be less. The slides are already dense. And so I'm going to go through those three main types and explain them, hopefully slowly. Statement coverage, branch coverage, condition coverage. So I'm going to be at times repeating this example. It's hello world, sort of. And I'm going to use the slide highlighting thing to show what was covered. And I admit my tests are not very good, because you see, I call it, but I don't check the results. So here's my hello world function. If I give it a parameter, it says servus. So servus Frankfurt is what it will say. And if I don't, it will say Perl rules. So with that test shown, coverage would look like this. Those three lines got called. And coverage was saying, you've got about 50% coverage, or something like that. And it will clearly say that line Perl rules is not covered. It tells me immediately that tests missed some of my code. So with this knowledge, I know that I need to write some more tests. I can fix that. I write a test that calls greet without parameters, and now my coverage also has that line, and it says Perl rules, and I have 100% coverage, and I'm happy. Right. Okay, branch coverage. So we go back to that first example, but my code's changed slightly. It looks like this. There's just the if block. And here's my test case. It says greet Frankfurt. I think we're in Frankfurt. Hey, cool. 100% statement coverage, it says. It all looks good. But for this code, what happens if greeting is under? We effectively call this implicit else block that doesn't exist. Not reach, but it's not there. We don't test that implicit else case. And that can matter. You say the code actually like this, where we did something here and we did something else there. Branch coverage would reveal that we hadn't tested the case of this function being called, do something else being called solo, without do something being called. Statement coverage would never tell us this, but branch coverage could tell us this. And maybe other parts of the test suite test those functions, so they've got full statement coverage. But branch coverage will tell us that this is not tested very well. It becomes our choice whether we fix that, but let's say we want to fix that. Branch coverage will tell us that we need to write another test like that, hello greet, to test the case of the else block. Not reached, no longer reached. I can't do strike out in Markdown like that. Okay, branch coverage. So condition coverage is a little bit more fun. Let's have a different example. It sort of relates to branch coverage. I'm going to show it here with branches, but it can also matter inside expressions where you've got complicated expressions with ternaries and so on. So we seem to test all the cases. We test the choose beer case here. Apparently I'm having fudge. And we can test the choose beer case in Dusseldorf with Gisbert, who will have old beer. Actually we're missing one. Condition coverage. We've only got 2/3 condition coverage. We tested the case of this expression being false and this expression being false, and we got to there. And we tested the case of both of these being true. But there's actually a three-way sort of table on the OR statement. Left false, right false. Test this. Left true. If left is true, the right is irrelevant. But there's another case we didn't test of left false, right true. You have 100% statement coverage, but only 67% condition coverage. I think we also got 100% branch coverage. So we fix that by adding another test case. And what happens if you're in Cologne and you're called Gisbert? Apparently you drink old beer. I tried this joke subtly last year and no one picked it up. About, it might have been that year or it was the year after, I can't remember. So that's condition coverage, and I think that's most of the introduction to test coverage. Much more. No plans to voice contact with the enemy. So, as I said, my tests are not very good. This is cool, I have 100% test coverage, but there we go, pass. Done testing. Test successful. Nothing is actually really tested. Coverage does not tell you that your tests are any good. It just tells you when you haven't got tests, or maybe you have got tests. So coverage is a means to an end. It doesn't tell you for sure your tests actually test whether the result's correct, but it helps. So the question is kind of when to stop. It's not worth hitting 100% coverage. I mean, you can, but don't make it an absolute goal. Your metrics can be gained, as I tried to show in that last slide. I got 100% coverage and no useful tests. It is a means to an end, not an end in itself. And code coverage does not earn you money. Working code earns you money. So 5 nines matters for uptime, not for code coverage. And, so that was the first 25% of the talk. That was a 10-minute talk. Stop recording, start recording again. So, cool, we've done all this locally on this machine on the train, say. How do we get from that to GitLab? So now, maybe in more depth, how do I generate Cobertura format XML using Devel cover? How do I get that to the GitLab continuous integration system so that it actually can use it? That was a dance. Then I discovered that actually my coverage reports are incomplete. Some of my files are completely untested, and Devel cover by default doesn't show that. How do I fix that? Then the original goal when all this started was I said to the system, how can I publish those Devel cover reports on S3? And he said there's GitLab Pages. And then Daniel said, oh yeah, but you can also do merge requests. And that went down to, well, that's where this talk came from. But we did do the eventual goal of publishing the reports. And then Laurent, Director of Engineering, said, can you do this without actually using GitLab? So I tried and basically failed, but I'll show you what I managed and what's next. So, the first of those, generating Cobertura XML really is this easy. You install the module, you add one line, oopsie, you are done. It works. And don't look at that XML file. It's statement coverage only. I mean, it compresses really nicely because look at that white space, verbosity, repetition. I'm sure we should write in YAML or something. We're supposed to trigger it off Tina, but I can't see Tina. Yeah, it's XML. It's minimally good. It seems to be the standard. I've got that file locally now. The next bit, it is literally just that. That's the diff, possibly slightly cut down. It's YAML boilerplate. It's just finding the right secret source. This is the right secret source. This is one of those, I can't really make the text bigger. Right, limitation, GitLab, it can only be a merge request. So we have a conditional rule to say, it has to be a merge request. We do stuff. Now, for reasons, we can't run the makefile step I just showed you for our CI system. We're actually iterating over different configurations and merging the test results or the coverage results. So, violation, don't repeat yourself. Here, I'm repeating myself. That's also in the makefile. And stepwise, we're also running this after make tests. So effectively, we run the same test twice. We run all the tests at this one. And then we call the coverage stuff and do things. And the last part is just boilerplate, and it really was finding the magic boilerplate that works. You say, this path I want to put in the GitLab artifacts. And then you tell GitLab, hey, I'd like you to make a report. It's a coverage report. The report format is Cobertura. I don't know if there are other ones. And it says the path you will find this in those artifacts is here. And that's mostly it. When you've done that, you get something like this. This is the end goal. I'm sure I can stop again, although the slide counter doesn't think so. Covered lines are green. Uncovered lines are red. Shame if you're colorblind. Apparently there is a setting in GitLab where you can change those colors from the defaults. But I think all you can do is change the colors. If you're totally colorblind, you're going to be relying on contrast differences, and that's not good enough. It would be nice if there was some way to make that bigger and have sort of a pattern or symbols or something, but yeah, people don't think about this. More subtle annoyances here. Here are my tests. I hacked this, by the way, in some of the work code because it was just easier than setting up GitLab on the laptop. Tests don't have any coverage. They're effectively white. Okay, white on a green background. Uncoverable lines, like there, are also white. So there's no difference between this, no big difference between this, which cannot ever go green, and this, which is code, because tests are code, right, which isn't green. It's actually the same failing as Devel cover, but I get later how I fix this. Another thing we discovered is that if you're on Firefox, these color bands show up immediately you look at the page. But they're doing obviously something rather clever with CSS or similar, because on Chrome it kind of cutesy pops out, and that really confused me because there's a delay, and it causes confusion. And maybe someone will get it. So I'm going to try at this point. I should put on my best Ringo Starr voice to say, you have caused confusion and delay, but I cannot do a Liverpool accent. And then show you a Thomas the Tank Engine clip and the whole slide talk gets a TCMA takedown. But it would be nicer if I could not do that. So yeah, basically, covered lines are green, uncovered are red, and there's too much white. But now when you come to review this code request, you can say immediately, you added some code, but there's no test for it. This is a win. It is actually really easy, and it's surprising no one's done this. Right. Timing. Am I 15 minutes in? Yes. Yeah, okay. Are we nearly there yet? It turns out I wrote this slide at Dortmund because I really was writing this straight on the train. Anyway, there are some subtle traps. So let's go back to that coverage report. Beautiful, wonderful. There are, I should wait the point of the video. Actually, no, that's on the screen. You can see that. I can see coverage report there for 7 files in bin. No, 6. I can't count. There are 13 files in total in bin, ignoring my one that leaks a bank name. Sorry, am I doing something wrong? No, good. Those files have... Oh, here's one, check bank holiday. But those files have no coverage reported. They're simply missed. They're not on this report. If you look at this report, and what happened was the first time I did it, I went, oh, that's cool. Totals are, this is an iframe, but whether I can get it to scroll is another matter. Ooh. Totals are down the bottom and it almost falls off the slide, and I'm very sorry at the back, but it says we've got 94.9% statement coverage and 70-something 75-ish branch. Okay, claims lots. But it's completely missing files. Clearly we have unknown unknowns. This is bad. I want to convert those into known unknowns. So what did I do? I hacked the script. It's called cover touch. I have to read some slide notes in a minute. They're on the next slide. And when I do this, all those uncovered files, as you can see, now come up with a big row of NOs. But they're there. Check Bank Holidays has no coverage. It ends up as naught due to bug or an oversight. I need to make this into... when you run this, you get this spray of undef warnings because some other part of the Devel cover code never expected to be given a data structure exactly like this and says undef is naught and stuff. But anyway, this is much better. And if I go down to the bottom, actually the totals are still not showing, unfortunately. I think that's the second part. Those files are ignored, so sorry, I didn't realize this. It's still pretty bad, but at least I can see very clearly that I have a big amount of white pasty scary. What is this script? It's a hack. Actually, the slides will work like that, don't they? If you use the mouse on the presentation format, it just flies everywhere through the screens, and I'm lost. This is a hack. I think it is correct, but I haven't chatted with Paul yet. It's real code from work, cut to fit the slide. There's nothing work specific in here. I intend, for conference development, I intend to make this a GitHub issue or merge request in terms of Paul. I think we'd like this, but how are we going to do this? This entire code will go on that, and I'll try and stick this in the slide notes in terms of you can steal it from here. But a conference-driven development failure, I didn't do this. Partly because, as I said, it was Dortmund and I was still writing slides. Whatever. 45 minutes from Frankfurt and I was still churning through things. What does this do? sorry, yeah, it spews uninit warnings, as I said, because it creates structures that weren't expected. And also, weirdly, even when you make your data internally like this, the XML report still ignores all the empty files. And I haven't worked out the right way to fix that yet. That's kind of covered on the last slide. So what does it do? It does a find over all the directories, and that's chopped down from the real work things. These are the ones I'm prepared to tell you about. And it bakes up some structures to run. Actually, sorry, first, it reads the existing data structure, because apparently you need to do that. This is like some of the other scripts do. It goes through every file on disk. It creates what I reverse engineer is pretty much the minimal devel cover structure for I ran this file, but nothing is collected on it, and then it writes it out. To fit, sorry people at the back, but to fit on the slide I had to cut out even the work code. It creates these directories if needed. This is the simple version. And that seems to be enough that the cover report on disk, which is a whole tree of files inside a directory called CoverDB, that now contains enough information of I ran a file that the report generator does what we want and showed you, I'll go back to the previous slide, all of those things. Okay. I also owe myself a reply on London Perlmongers when I asked, does anyone do this? And everyone said no, and then I thought, oh, well, I am there, aren't I? So, there. I might be more like timing is real. Cool. So green is good. Green is healthy. Green is covered. As I showed on the original thing and hacked a bit, by default tests are white. We wanted our tests to show up in the coverage report. So what we did, I need to check my slide notes here. We weren't collecting data. We were deliberately just save time, don't collect data on anything in the test suite and blah, 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 blah. And so we changed the data collection rules to remove the ignore from tests and just collect, we still collect on blah, 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 which is proof and so on. Okay, we're now collecting coverage on those. The Cobertura report is still at the same time. That now contains coverage information on all our tests. But we don't want those on the HTML report, or it'll be twice as long and there'll be a whole lot of very, very green things, which are the test scripts themselves, that doesn't tell us anything useful. And then we instead changed the report generation thing so that previously it just did stuff, so that it now ignores test data. So I can ignore at collection time, but I can also ignore at report generation time, and I moved it to report generation time. With this, it is good. Our tests have coverage that the merge request system in GitLab can see and makes them green, and I'm happy now because more things are green that should be green. And our HTML report still actually covers the useful stuff. I mean, I don't care about coverage in tests in my merge request, but I care that I care about desensitizing people to white. So, recap. We only have statement coverage in merge requests. So that was pretty much GitLab. We only have statement coverage only for merge requests. It's only available in GitLab for merge requests. They have a concept of assets for merge requests, and those assets expire. So after I've merged the merge request, and a bit later, if nothing happens, all my coverage disappears. And it also only shows me coverage on the change bits. I have a full report locally on my disk. Can I also get that into GitLab so that we can look before we even start working and go, oh, that's white, must write test before touching that code. And can I publish that to GitLab? Again, this is kind of secret sauce boilerplate. I'm going to pick through this. I think I have time to be slow. There are 3-4 bonus slides, so I'm doing okay. It's 2 stages. It seems that you need 2 stages. You have a coverage stage and a publish stage. If it's possible to do this in one hit, I couldn't work out GitLab CI. So this is the existing coverage stage. I showed you this earlier. Earlier it was generating the Cobertura report. I added things to it. I say it now also runs if we're on main. I'm being kind of lazy here. I generate all the reports both times, even though For the merge request, I only use the XML, and for the main, I only use the full report. But most of the work is generating the coverage, collecting all the data. So there's, I think for us, 7 or 8 minutes of time the same, and then I would save 3 seconds by making it more complicated. That's not worth it. So I now run this both on main and on a merge request event. The second bit is, you kind of saw it earlier, this turned out to be a really good hack. If you see those Devel cover reports, they say blah blah cover DB, and at no point do you have any sort of meta information about, they tell you what time it was and what Perl version it was, but they don't tell you other than cover DB. So the little hack was to symlink cover DB with the commit hash of the commit we are building, whether it's, or in this case it's main, and then when we invoke cover, we use that as the its local directory at this point. We use that as the directory name rather than cover DB, and then it will show that in the report as commit hash. And I've got my commit hash in there pretty much for free. That turned out to be quite important because, like, when am I looking at it from? There might be more elegant ways to do this, but this was, yeah, it's a one-line hack. With a comment. Three-line hack, sorry. And the last bit is, we've made all those files on disk. If you've looked at Devel cover, there's cover DB, and now after you run the report generation, there's lots of HTML files and CSS files. And we do this step where we say, hey, I'm building artifacts. Add to my artifacts, as well as that XML, I'm popping XML. You add all the HTML files and the CSS file. You don't actually have to store all the structure, the Devel cover structure, so you can't rerun other reports on this. This is just now the display rendering. But that's enough. And we publish that as push that as an asset to GitLab and carry on the pipeline. Next slide. I'm being a bit naughty with the highlighter here. This one is a diff. We add a stage. We add another stage called deploy. So in the course of this talk, I added coverage a bit ago, and I've now added deploy. Here, this is all new, but I want to show you the bit in the middle. The hack is, if you've used Devel cover, you'll find that file's called coverage.html, and you go to the directory, and either your web server says, I can't serve you the directory, or it just shows you this enormous list of files. If you link coverage.html to index.html, your life is just do that. Anyway, here we go. This is all magic boilerplate source, whatever. If we're on main, run this stage. Run it after that stage. Do that hack I said. Publish these artifacts. I can't run this as one stage apparently. Oh, and my artifact's going to be those paths. And I think I can expire the artifacts. I don't think that matters. It's less than 30 days. If these things vanish 30 days of no activity, I'll tell you I got it wrong. It really all is this, and it was a bit of a fight getting this right. So just steal this slide. And if you do this, and you're running GitLab, and we're self-hosting GitLab on Amazon, I believe, and I'm allowed to say that, I believe, all this will get exposed from recording. If you have your GitLab running as gitlab.example.com, and you have a namespace and a project, and that's your repository down in project, then the pages will be running, I think, on the same sort of machine as a host name called namespace.pages, for example.com, and project. And on GitLab Pages, on that lower URL, you would see this, although with my hack, you see the SHA thing. And that is now on GitLab, and you can look at it. And I'm not sure whether I should show you the work. I probably shouldn't show you the work thing. Imagine, this is the work thing. I don't want to show you the work thing. I know why. And I wouldn't say why. Remember, sorry. Debugging this. So, sorry, this is... 15 minutes. This is magic. We've done it. Right? There was quite a lot of pain to get there. A lot of times to remember what was going on. And sorry, this is not the greatest screenshot, but at some point on the pipelines, you will see this sidebar. It says, the pipeline took that long, it finished then, it queued, blah, 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 blah. There's this thing. Job artifacts. Download. This is how you debug all this when it isn't working. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's actually on the slide notes, it's up there. You download the artifacts and you go, what did I actually push to the artifacts? What isn't right? Why isn't it the wrong format? Why isn't it in the right place? You get, as your download, a file called artifacts.zip every time. It doesn't have a pipeline number in it or anything like that. So it will artifact space 1, artifact space 2, or however other machines do that. This, yeah. It will unpack at the top level, so it will cover DB over the top of whatever else you had there. So yeah, watch out. But those are sort of moots aside. This is how you work out that you didn't actually send the right file to the right place, or why pages are not publishing the right thing, or why the XML file is not the right format. All those things. 10. 9 slides. For which bonus? So,
Can you automate that?
can I automate? The pages are automated.
No, I mean automate the download.
Oh,
So
no, you don't. This is just for debugging, Paul. Paul says, can I automate the download? This was entirely for it is not working. I do not need to download this. This all hides behind GitLab now. This was just the, it is not working. Until I got the secret source recipe, I was tearing my, I shouldn't tear my hair out. I don't have enough. Trying to figure out what was going on. And this was how I debugged it, by eventually finding this button and going, oh, I can download debugging information. This is basically debug logs. You might use CI to build real artifacts you needed, but in this case, artifacts are being used, reused, abused as a means of talking from the left hand to the right hand. Laura asks, can we do it locally? Because you see, it's only for merge requests. Hence, to actually get one of these reports, you must push. You must create a merge request, even if it's a draft merge request. I guess I should close my draft merge request I use to generate things. You'll find this. Yeah, and you must have GitLab running, either somewhere in the cloud or whatever that you can get to, or locally on your machine on a Docker instance, which I didn't try to do. It certainly can't be used for intermediate commits, unless you make a spray of merge requests, and you can't use it for work in progress as you're going hack, 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 and is it good enough? Should I do this yet? So I went looking and thought, someone else must have hit this problem, and found there's a tool called diff cover. It also takes Cobertura XML, so I've already done the first stage. It says it can do a CLI output. Cool. It also can do HTML output. So I installed it, and I generated an anyway, tested it, and this is what it looks like in a terminal. Well, not quite. I could do a live demo on this. It's not worth it. Syntax highlights it beautifully. But note two things. It doesn't show me the actual line numbers in the file. It shows me the relative line numbers, 4 digits. And for the next hunk of uncovered stuff, it repeats the same line numbers. I can't skim Python, I admit I'm not that good at all. But the regression test for this thing suggests that this is for real. The regression test for a 2-diff thing on a text file show 2 sets of repeating 0 to 9 or 0 to 11. So I think this is what they intend to generate, and I can't recommend this. Okay, let's try the browser version. So you run this command line, HTML report diff, and you get this. And so I look at this and I go, this is very 2001. Look, double borders on tables, flashbacks. And look, I know it's got inline CSS because it's using it to make those bits colorful, but it doesn't put any effort into the rest of it. So weirdly, unlike Devel Cover, the tool from 2001 continues to maintain, this is not pretty reports for management. Yeah, it just about works, but yeah, it's clearly rather too minimalist for my taste. I was rather hoping that there'd be something that would do it in a command line. So I looked further. There's a tool called Difftastic. Never met this before. I hoped, and that's its first example one, for something more like that. There it's showing a diff where it's doing structural diffs. It's syntax passed it as Rust and then shown, if you're colorblind, sorry, but look, bits of it, where's my mouse there? Bits of it are in green because that's the actual diff, not the entire lines. And I was rather hoping that I'd have something like this, which would have like symbols in here for covered or not, and colorful, and different symbols like exclamation marks for uncovered code. And I'd like something like that. But it just doesn't seem to exist. Fine. Yeah, I mean, do I need to learn Rust? Cool, fine. To save the world? It's all a bit unsatisfactory. So at the point of arriving at this talk this morning, I still need to fake XML entries for uncovered files. There's no schema for Cobertura, and it's kind of been noticed some time ago as this issue. I need to write that merge request I said to start talking to Paul about how we actually get Devel Cover to show to turn the unknown unknowns into known unknowns. If there is a better CLI diff tool, I need to find it, or do I need to write it? And this is the official end slide. I shall summarize by saying Devel cover is really easy. Generating XML turned out to be easy. Adding it to merge requests is not hard once you know how. Steal my slide. Publish full report to pages turns out to be not that hard either. Steal my slide. And any questions? There's going to be some clapping. Okay. Do I do the bonus? Paul, two questions.
Who's first?
You go first because you haven't asked one yet.
Is there a public GitLab repository with your actual CI setup online?
Is there a public GitLab repository with our actual CI setup online? No, because it's it's a single, the CI is a single YAML file within the repository you are testing, so this is deeply in the work code. So you have to explain this, you'd have to produce, either do it on an open source project or produce a dummy thing to explain it. You've not, I think that's answered your question, hasn't it? Roughly. Is that an answer? Cool. Paul. I think the mic picks you up.
Div cover. I was wondering why don't you use the output from Devel cover, but I think I might have missed.
I think you've missed something.
Yeah.
The diff cover tool, it is the output from Devel cover. Because that's the full files, right? The HTML is the full files. For my hack into app notify, which is a 200-line thing, I can look at Devel cover report. I'd have to cross-check. Here are the line numbers of my diff. I changed 5 lines at the end with scroll down and whatever. The GitLab merge request, Paul nods, but I should keep going slightly further. The GitLab merge request is just showing you the section that changed and the coverage of the section that changed.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
Cool. Right. Question.
Your merge request is test suite itself. Does it show you the lines that are now covered in the new test?
Could you repeat that? If what?
Like I make a merge request for the test suite,
Yeah.
and it's a way to show the lines that are now covered in the section of the test suite.
If you make a merge request for the test suite, doesn't it show the lines that are now covered for the test suite?
Like adding tests.
Like adding tests. I understand the question. I'm trying to work this out. Strictly, first of all, I don't think it's even showing coverage on new files. I can't remember. Because I changed the CI stuff to also show tests, it will show the coverage on tests. I'm not sure how. I don't know is the answer. I think it depends what you want it to do. I wanted my HTML reports to only show the code that goes into production, and I wanted my MRs to show all code changed. But most test suites run most of the code. I think the answer would be yes, it would. If you had a test suite where there's kind of if not, or you just have code in the test suite that looks like it runs, but it never runs, it will now show that as being covered because it's being run. So I think the answer is yes. But I'm not doing very well. I think it's 2 minutes to lunchtime and I shouldn't show the sillies. Is that right? No slides. Okay, right. I should do the first. The spec of Cobertura XML, it doesn't exist. They've got SGML DTT twice. So can I convert that to, I thought this right, XSD? There is an official script there. It's Perl from 2001 era. Yay! Does it work? Wait, I have to steal my... I told you to be swearing from jobs. You're on the left, right. Terminal. There's a copy of Bleed I built today because I'm nuts. No, anything else? Doesn't go very well. It would work with that, but yeah, let's skip that. Point is, it does work. There's one error. So 2001 era Perl script will run with Bleed with one warning and a lot of undef warnings. Try doing that in Python. the other one, and I think I will. Yeah, dear. Where's me word driving? Brave, right. I thought Cobertura was a fork of Clover. I was wrong on that. They're similar XML, and the Perl module one is a subclass of the other. Clover was a project of Atlassian. They open sourced it in 2017. There's a blog post and there's a repository. Let's look at that repository up on Bitbucket. This really is everything. There are 4 commits. The bottom one is a patch bomb of 273,372 insertions. Everything just, there's one commit. And then it's got ignored. So, I mean, yeah, look, dev null, it's where code goes to die. Corporate open source. There is, to be fair, an Open Clover project which is fairly active. And this is the end of the silly bonus stuff. I was just, yeah, open source. There. I think that makes it lunchtime, right? So. Jetzt ist Mittagpause.